This is the Moshpit Backstage podcast for punk, metal and rock interviews and segments.
Hi, this is Andrew from Boltgun, and you're listening to the Moshpit on SYN.
Andrew Trenovan is the vocalist for Fremantle band Boltgun, who are releasing their new album Man is Wolf to Man on November 14th. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having us.
You're really welcome. Now, often when I start off some of these conversations, I say from metal band, from post-rock band or something, but with a band like Boltgun, I don't really have a preface for that. How would you go about describing the sound of the band?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I guess we see it as more being atmospheric and kind of very noise-driven, but have a lot of influences from, like black metal and death metal. So I guess it's, kind of noise, ambient, black doom or something. Yeah, it's kind of confusing.
That's fair enough. Now, how did the band start?
I actually started it by myself a few years ago, just kind of doing more like noise, like power electronics kind of stuff, like as a solo project. And myself and Jono, the guitarist, we'd been in a black metal band together, so I kind of just started sending him a few tracks and seeing if he wanted to put some riffs over it. Kind of went from there. The
name Boltgun, what does it mean and how did you choose it? Definitely wasn't the most imaginative name. It kind of just, at a time, like I said, like doing more power electronic stuff, I just wanted the most kind of almost straightforward to the point of being stupid kind of name, like a lot of the older noise bands. And also like just my own interest in animal rights and things like that. So watching footage of like bolt guns being used on a lot of cattle and things like that. Kind of where it came from. Now the album, I want to start with the title because I think that's a really good way to sort of flesh our way into this. Talk a little bit about the title. Why did you choose it and what does it mean? The title actually we got from a book from a guy who survived the gulag during the Soviet Union. His name is Janusz Badoš. And it's just the title of his memoir about his experiences in a place called Kolyma, which is kind of far east Russia, like an island off the east coast. So we just took it from the title of that. But it's actually an old saying, an old Latin saying. It goes back a few thousand years as far as I'm aware. Talk a little bit about what the concept focuses on from the album.
I guess it really did just go back to like where I got the title from, and a few other books that I've been reading based on experiences in the gulag. Badoš's account is a pretty big one, but also another guy called Danzig Dave. He wrote. He has a book of illustrations called Drawings from the Gulag. Took a lot of influence from that as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they're pretty confronting kind of images from a guy who was kind of stationed at a lot of these places like Kolyma, and we kind of just started filtering ideas through that. So I just ended up writing quite a long kind of narrative based on that, on primarily these two books, and kind of just took it from that, really.
Now, in terms of writing, kind of something which relates to an incredibly horrific period of human history, how do you get in the headspace to write about that?
I'm not really sure if you can. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, compared to how we live, like here, you can't really, but I think you just read a lot. Especially like first-hand accounts. I mean, and just it's kind of you just can't really understand how someone would live through that And generally what would happen is we'd read some of these books and just a few lines would tend to stick out, and we would just be really driven by that, and you tend to centre the lyrics around just a couple of phrases here and there.
Now, in terms of the actual music of the piece, how does that come together? Because for a lot of bands I talk to, it's very much a matter of, all right, we wrote a song, we jammed it, it fat together nicely, and we did the same thing for a couple other songs. Or we had a bunch of ideas and we mushed them together in a certain way, and we eventually got to something we're happy with. When you're talking about one particularly large song, one rather large song, how does that work? How does the band come together to make those things happen?
I guess we're used to working apart. I lived in Melbourne for a couple of years when we first started Bolt Gun, so the first two albums were recorded we came together to record it, obviously, but then the actual writing process was something we did away from each other. So a lot of it was, I'd send the guitarist a whole bunch of kind of synth or orchestral kind of noise tracks, and then he'd come up with a riff for it, and then so I guess we're kind of building a song across a spectrum. It would start if the noise track was 10 minutes, we'd decide, how long a riff do you want over that, or what kind of drum samples we put over it, and I guess maybe that's why. It's certainly kind of not the best thing writing in different cities, but I think when you're writing long songs, apart from being a little bit kind of self-indulgent, I think it's just that space, that time we spend apart, and we kind of end up spending maybe way too much time on the actual writing process, because we don't really rehearse them very much before we go into a recording studio. I think our drummer, she rehearsed with us twice before we recorded that one, so the last one, so we kind of just go in pretty fresh. We're actually going back in to the studio in a couple of months again, and the songs are only kind of half written this time, which should be interesting.
I think I was speaking to a fellow label mate, Slowly Building Weapons. They talked a little bit about this kind of more organic process where not as much stuff is determined before you actually start on the journey. Do you think that adds to it in a certain way? Do you think it gives the piece a bit more something that it may not otherwise have had?
Yeah, I think so. All of us, myself and John and Val, we've all been playing in bands together for over 10 years now, before we ever started Bolt Gun. So we definitely got a shorthand when it comes to just getting in a room together. We always play with a different drummer, so I think we've gotten pretty good at letting them know where we're at, or just kind of feeling them out and things like that. But yeah, it can definitely. I think that helps. If you know each other well, I think if we'd only been playing together for like a year or two, it probably wouldn't work. But I think the whole point that we started Bolt Gun was really, we kind of had enough of being in bands where you come up with an idea that's a little bit different, and it kind of gets shot down because of that. There's a lot of people that are a bit more reluctant to experiment these days, I feel like. And so we kind of just decided, let's just do our own thing, and any idea is really up for grabs. You kind of reject it together, but if you have to. But yeah, essentially we really just like the idea of doing whatever we want, I guess, yeah.
In terms of part one, a 30-minute song, when you're writing a track like that that's incredibly sort of flowing and expansive, and it doesn't have this very strict structure of, okay, we've got 3 pieces and each goes for 3 minutes and then we're done, how do you know when that song is complete? How do you know it's sort of reached its potential in your mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think even when we recorded it, we're still unsure. It's still pretty loose. Every time we play it live, it's different. We never play it the same. sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes we don't even play with drums. We just have more programmed kind of noise and things like that. So, I think we've kind of decided that the way it ends up on the album is just kind of how we played it on the day. I don't think we've got... it doesn't affect me too much because I just go on and do my vocals over it, or all my stuff's already pre-programmed. But I think for, like, say, Jono and Val and Talia on this one, they just kind of got in a room together and off they went, and we just kind of picked the best one. It's kind of, I think, kind of good to watch, actually. They're pretty intuitive.
To you, what's the relationship between the audio and the visual? Because I think to a lot of people, obviously movies have sound, but it's kind of just there. Mm-hmm. And music has music videos, but it's kind of just there. And music sort of exists in its own space. What do you think the relationship between music and an image or a piece of film, what do you think that relationship is?
I mean, for me, it's a really big deal. I mean, I sometimes when I'm watching a film, I pay more attention to the actual relationship between the sound, not necessarily even the music, just the actual overdub kind of sound. I mean, for us, it's obviously important because we have visuals when we play live, but I think you can really look at, a scene from a film in a totally different way, obviously, depending on the kind of music over it. So I think when you watch a film like a Lopushansky film, and obviously our music's so different to the score. I really feel like when we think about how our music sounds over the top of it, I think we really change the actual nature of the scene itself. So I guess we kind of look at it in that way, in terms of like actual relationship between music, like in cinema generally. Yeah, I think it's a pretty big influence for me. I guess it depends on the type of film. Maybe not so much in a lot of modern cinema, but I think in the older things from I guess the directors that we tend to follow, like Tarkovsky or Lopushansky and people like that.
You used two pieces from Museum Visitor for the excerpt from Man is to Wolf Part 1, and I think you used a still for the album cover. Talk about this and why you chose to use it and how it fits into the broader kind of idea of the Stalinist Russia.
I think it's probably just a coincidence that the directors that we really like are kind of ex-Soviet or Russian, Ukraine kind of directors. But I think the rule that we decided to go with for the album cover was, I just really like how it tends to really express this loneliness. Like, I think it looks, the guy himself, and when you watch that film, he's so alone, and I think I really got that when I was reading Man is Wolf to Man. I think, there's certain moments where he's just really coming to terms with, well, you're about to die, and I found it really quite interesting, the thoughts that were going through his head, and it just kind of clicked every time I look at that image. I really just, it kind of reminds me of that book.
How'd you get permission to use parts from a museum visitor?
So we ended up getting in touch with the director. He was really happy for us to do it. It was actually kind of confusing because he said he made the films when he was under Soviet rule, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. So he said technically it belongs to the Soviet Union. But he said there's no way they're going to investigate you or come after you. So it was kind of unusual situation for him as well, because he was like, well, I made it technically under contract for the communists, but then at the same time I directed it and it's my film. So he's like, at the end of the day, you've got my blessing, it's all good. But there's an abstract side to it as well, if that makes sense.
What is it that sort of focused you on these kind of Soviet era, I would say Eastern European filmmakers?
I think we've had a bit of an obsession with it for a while. I mean, I studied a little bit of film when I was at uni, and I did about a year of European film. And we just had some really good lecturers, and they just really just kept forcing guys like Kieslowski, and not so much the Russian guys, but I think once you start, getting into that kind of film, you just, it's a slippery slope before you know it. You're looking at lots of other ones. So I'd say that was the genesis of it. But and I've always just had an interest in film, like abstract kind of stuff, ever since I was fairly young, like David Lynch and anything kind of slightly unusual, esoteric kind of stuff.
The Bandcamp page mentions that you should listen to the album while watching images from a couple of works, including a museum visitor. Like, in your ideal sort of situation, how does a person experience your album?
I guess it's up to, as cliched as it sounds, it's kind of everyone's choice, isn't it? If you want to just listen to it in your bedroom alone at night, and that was myself, and coming up with ideas. I guess I just wander around more industrial areas myself and listen to it. But I feel like, you watch a film, like a Russian film, they really are like industrial kind of very like forlorn, crushing landscapes. So as far as like the ideal way to experience it, I guess it would be just in an open kind of environment, whether it be urban, industrial, or even, I'm sure it could probably work in a natural kind of environment, like in the middle of nowhere, even though that's the furthest, from our minds when we make this music. We're definitely not thinking about like waterfalls and forests or anything, but maybe it could work. Each their own, I guess.
In a Facebook post about your Fremantle show coming up at the end of the year, and as well as earlier in this interview, you sort of talked about not playing the album the same. Facebook post mentions improvisation, improvised noise realms. Mm-hmm. How do you guys approach that when you're not playing a strict structure, a strict song when you know all the notes? How do you approach that in a live context?
I guess we kind of, it probably comes back to the fact that we've just played together for so long. Improvised, we kind of just bring in samples that we're in the mood for, or our bass player's got a moog that he brings on stage, which is pretty noisy, and he plays that, or improvised percussion. I think we kind of know when it's time to move on, or like it's just kind of intuitive in a way. I'm not really sure. I just know it tends to work. At least I don't know of anyone that's complained, or, not that they probably would, but we kind of just wing it, to be honest.
Fair enough. Are you expecting to come to Melbourne to play anytime soon?
We have actually planned on it. Nothing concrete yet, but we're keen. We know, there's such a good kind of live scene over there, and obviously people in Melbourne are pretty open to different kind of stuff. So, we're really keen. It's probably going to be sometime 2018, but I'd say there's a pretty good chance we'll be over there next year.
Awesome. We'll keep our ears open. A couple of sort of more personal questions to you now. Yeah. When did you start listening to heavy music?
Probably like a lot of people, like around high school, probably early, 13, 14, started getting into, like Metallica and Ministry, Cannibal Corpse and stuff like that, Deicide. And then obviously you start with bands like that, and next thing you know, you're always looking for the next thing, like there's always got to be heavier, so you start getting into black metal and, like Burzum and Emperor and Mayhem and stuff like that. I guess it was probably pretty similar. A lot of guys my age would kind of go on the same way. I guess it depends on how old you are. I don't know if a high school kid today is kind of doing the same thing, but definitely in the 90s, that it feels like a while ago now, but that's definitely the way we went.
What about noise music? How did you come across that?
That came a bit later. Probably the same deal, like just wanting it to get heavier and heavier. There was a really good radio, well, there still is a really good radio station over here called Behind the Mirror. It's been going since, I think, the early 90s. And they played everything from kind of ambient noise and black metal to, maybe it's just a teenage thing, I'm not sure. Although I still enjoy a bit of noise music for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one frontier I haven't really been able to cross. It's a hard slog to get into noise music.
No, fair enough. I mean, I think it's a confusing name as well because, I mean, noise, I mean, you could plug your refrigerator into a sampler and put distortion on it, and essentially it's a noise track. So I think it becomes, there's a lot of purists, and people approach it in different ways. So, yeah, I think it's, it's not for everyone, and that's probably fair enough, I think.
Bolt Gun releasing their new album, Man is Wolf to Man, on November 14th. Andrew, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for the chat, man. It was good.
Thanks for listening to the Moshpit Backstage podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Omni. To find out more about the show, go to www.syn.org.au/moshpit. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/moshpitonsyn and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at moshpitsyn. The regular Moshpit radio show broadcasts punk, rock and metal tunes and interviews every Thursday nights on Syn 9.7 on FM and digital radios. Listeners outside of Melbourne, Australia can stream Syn 9.7 online at www.syn.org.au. Thanks to Vintage Ruin for the music.
Hi, this is Tomato from Flash Gun Apocalypse.
Hi, I'm Enid from Girls School.
I am Phoebe Pinnock from Heavenly Axe.
Hey, this is Gary Oldmead of the Misfits.
Hey, this is Kat Sproul from Horizon's Edge, and you're listening to the Moshpit on Syn FM.
Hi, this is Einar from Leopard.
Hi, I'm Virginia Lilly from the band Lily.
This is Raul from 1349.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ali from Zebrahead.
Hey, everybody, this is Charlie Benante with Anthrax, and you are listening to the Moshpit on Syn.